Overnight lows tonight in the upper 30s. We're looking at a high tomorrow into the lower 70s. It is going to be gorgeous with sunny skies and very little in the way of cloud cover. We could see a couple of spot showers by Saturday, but Sunday into Monday could have a wintry mix and could be a little dicey. Stay tuned. I'm First Alert KMOV meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This hour of Colombo Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Hello and welcome to Thursday afternoon here on Colombo and Company on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. I am Tony Colombo in studio with producer Ashlyn, and we've got another jam-packed show for you today. We have got the latest surrounding Jeffrey Epstein testimony. Just heard Jamie Allman a few minutes ago talking about Hillary Clinton. She is being interviewed today about her Epstein connections from the House Oversight Committee. Very interesting. A very interesting deal struck by the Clintons, first of all, as far as, putting guidelines around their testimony. And then, of course, we've got some of the initial reports coming out of the interview with Hillary today. Bill gets his time with the Oversight Committee tomorrow, so we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll get you the latest there. Right at the end of the show yesterday, I talked about Zoran Mondani, New York City mayor, doubling down, digging into his dismissal, I guess is the best way to put it, of the attack, the snowball attack on various New York City police officers, despite the fact that several of those officers were hospitalized due to the snowballs that were being thrown at them that caused lacerations and injuries to the faces and heads of multiple officers. Well, Mondani is now tripling down. He's not letting this go on that situation and how it was just nothing. There's nothing to see here. Nobody was assaulted, even though they had to go to the hospital. And, just continues to shrug it off as kids having a snowball fight. So I want to get into that a little bit more. Also, speaking of Zoran Mondani, he is going to be meeting with the president at the White House. I think later this afternoon. This kind of came out of nowhere. The two are expected to discuss housing issues, particularly those obviously affecting New York City, according to a report from the New York Post. Also likely to discuss immigration issues. That ought to be interesting. Especially Zoran Mondani. I mean, Donald Trump, we're used to Donald Trump calling people names and taking shots at people in the media and in person and at the State of the Union. But I think Zoran Mondani has called Trump more names than Trump has called Zoran. But if you remember, several weeks ago, the New York mayor made a visit to the White House, and there was actually a lot of positive. There was no there's a lot of compliments dished out from both sides after that meeting, which I think surprised a lot of people, myself included. So we'll keep an eye on that and let you know the details and any information we get coming out of that meeting at the White House. We also have more reaction and fallout as people unpack the State of the Union. a lot of people digging in today to the moment where the president called out Nancy Pelosi. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, but we'll dig into it a little deeper today. Called for Congress to fast track the bill that would ban insider trading, essentially, from members of Congress in the Senate, and then took a shot directly at Nancy Pelosi afterwards. There was some polling data, like some of that live tracking that you see that are done by some of these polling institutions, where they're, the various people watching the speech have a little dial in front of them, and you watch and see, like, when the Republican viewers, what they respond to, and when it goes up or down. And then there's one line for the Republicans, one line for Democrat viewers, and then one line for independents. A lot have been digging into that and the reaction to that moment of the speech. So we'll talk about that as we go through the afternoon as well. We're also going to get into some of the local issues of the day. This is becoming a major focus. I mean, local issues are always a major focus for us here on a weekly basis. Yesterday, we talked to our Missouri political insider, Rodney Boyd. He's with us every Wednesday afternoon, and every Thursday afternoon, we talked to Missouri Senator Nick Schroer. He'll be here with us in just about 5 minutes from now. I almost said 6 or 7 minutes, but I'm not going to say that ever again. He'll be here in a little more than 5 minutes. And if we don't talk to Nick on Thursdays, we usually talk to another Missouri lawmaker. And there's a lot going on, a lot to cover, as we are now wrapping up the month of February. And as I mentioned with Rodney Boyd yesterday, anytime you get to the end of another month during the session, it's just a reminder of that clock ticking, and how there's only so much time every year in the Missouri legislative session. Wraps up in early May, mid-May. So it sounds like there's a lot of time, but time flies in politics, and especially when it sometimes seems to take forever to get any type of results or action done. So, we're getting to the point where it's time for Missouri lawmakers to start making some things happen in Jeff City. And from our conversation yesterday with Rodney Boyd, it seems like there is a lot of positive momentum happening in the Capitol for some of these issues. So we'll get a full update from Missouri Senator Nick Schroer again in just about 5 minutes from now. We're also going to be joined today by Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire. She'll be with us a little bit later on this hour, about half hour or so from now. And in the 3 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by Dr. Randy Tolber, host of the Randy Tolber Show every Saturday morning here on News Talk STL. And also, speaking of Saturday mornings, my co-hosts from the Bluff City Outdoor Show will also be with us in the 3 o'clock hour. So lots to get to as we go through this busy Thursday afternoon. Let's start with Hillary Clinton. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is accusing the GOP-led House Oversight Committee of using her to distract from President Donald Trump during her high-stakes testimony in Congress over the Jeffrey Epstein situation. This report, most of this information coming from Fox News here. A committee endeavoring to stop, this is a quote from Hillary Clinton, quote, "A committee endeavoring to stop human trafficking would seek to understand what specific steps are needed to fix a system that allowed Epstein to get away with his crimes in 2008, unquote," Hillary told the panel, according to her opening remarks. Back to the quote, "But that's not happening. Instead, you have compelled me to testify, fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist your investigation, in order to distract attention from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers." Okay, here's the problem with that statement from Hillary Clinton, and we've been over this so many times. I'm not protecting any Republican lawmaker or saying that they have, that they're not guilty of, at best, just ignoring the Epstein files, at worst, covering them up. But there's absolutely no doubt about it that the Democrats did that as well. And I think you could easily make the argument that the Democrats in Congress and in the previous presidential administration did way more to hide the Epstein files than what we've seen under the Trump administration. As frustrating as things have been during this second Trump administration, at least we're getting some of the files released. At least we're seeing these documents finally for the first time after calling for them. These are all the same. There's nothing new here. These are all the same documents that the government had, that Congress had access to all through for all 4 years of Joe Biden's administration. And they didn't even talk about it, let alone go through all the emotional calls for transparency that we're seeing now. So when Hillary Clinton says that this is all just a big distraction and obvious evidence of Republicans in Congress to cover up the Epstein files in some way to protect Donald Trump, it's just not true. The history proves that they could have released these documents years ago. Democrats who are now crying that that these documents have been hidden and kept from the American people, they could have released these documents during the Biden administration, and they would have had they could have done it with almost no resistance, but they didn't. They didn't care, but now suddenly they do. So the idea that this is simply the Republicans blocking this information and these documents from being released it's just a lie. Clinton is telling lawmakers, quote, "As I stated in my sworn declaration on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I did not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein," which I find that hard to believe, even though we know that her and Bill haven't really hung out much in a very long time. But obviously, her husband definitely encountered Mr. Epstein on many times. Back to the quote, "I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that," unquote. The Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer told reporters earlier today, quote, "No one's accusing, at this moment, the Clintons of any wrongdoing. They're going to have due process. But we have a lot of questions, and the purpose of the whole investigation is to try to understand many things about Epstein." As I mentioned, Bill Clinton is going to be under questioning tomorrow. Both Democrats and Republicans from the committee, as well as the panel staff, had to travel to Clinton's home of Chappaqua, New York, for this 2-day investigation, this 2-day hearing there. Again, I mentioned a moment ago, this is part of that agreement with the Clintons, which is, talk about privilege and the same rules not applying to everyone. The Clintons tried over and over again, and they were faced, if you remember, they were faced with charges of contempt of Congress if they didn't testify. They had tried to resist this questioning for so long, and they finally make a deal. I don't even know why the House Oversight Committee was even negotiating with Clintons, but they did. And part of those negotiations for them to finally sit down and answer some questions is that these congressmen and women had to come to them, to their home. That is just absolutely ridiculous. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this. We will get you any more information that we get from Hillary Clinton's testimony tomorrow when Bill goes, and we'll keep you up to speed every step of the way. All right, we're going to get back into some of the national and international issues here in just a few moments. But first, let's turn the focus to some local news and politics and what is happening in Jeff City as part of the Missouri legislative session. Missouri Senator Nick Schroer hosts a Stand and Fight every Sunday here on News Talk STL. Senator Schroer joins us next.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL. If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
Thanks for being my voice in all this.
This is News Talk STL.
There are people out there that feel the way that I feel and say what I say.
Welcome home.
Concerned about the condition of your windows driving up your energy bills? I was too. It's only called STL Windows and Doors. Their Provia windows combine old world craftsmanship the professional way, the Provia way, with over 65 years of combined experience, locally owned, offering competitive pricing and personalized service that the big box companies can't match. Call today for your free in-home estimate and start saving tomorrow. 314-277-5952 or stlwindowsanddoors.com.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Mark Schmitz, father of Jared Schmitz, the founder of the freedom13.org.
We've met with Trump now, I think it's 6 times. Trump has been fantastic. What you see on TV is what you get in real life. I mean, we spent 6 hours at private dinner with him. It wasn't stuffy. It wasn't uncomfortable. It literally felt like you were at your Uncle Bob's backyard barbecue, but he knew information about my son.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL. Freedom Caucus Unfiltered, debuting this Sunday night at 7 on News Talk STL. Hear all the behind-the-scenes stories about what the State Freedom Caucus is doing across the country, directly from the legislators and the people that are doing it. Freedom Caucus Unfiltered, this Sunday night at 7 with very special guest Mark Meadows, hosted by Tim Jones. Freedom Caucus Unfiltered, now Sunday nights at 7 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. You just heard that promo there for our new show, Freedom Caucus Unfiltered. New Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening show here on News Talk STL. Speaking of Freedom Caucus Unfiltered, our next guest, Missouri Senator Nick Schroer, is part of that Missouri Freedom Caucus, and I would say lives his life unfiltered. Senator, how are you?
Well, that is an accurate assessment. I have nothing to add to that.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to add to that except a hearty amen. So, yeah, there's so much going on right now that we could talk about in the state of Missouri and that you guys are working on there in Jeff City. I mentioned, as we wrap up February, we're just a couple of days away from the end of February. This is the last week of February, and while there's still a little bit, we're not even quite, I don't think, quite to the halfway point of this legislative session. Anytime you reach the end of a month during the session, it's kind of a reminder of the ticking clock. And, we're just a few weeks away from spring break, which I think is kind of the unofficial recognized sort of halftime of the legislative session. So it feels like May is a long way away, but it is not. As you know, time flies in politics. So I would imagine that it's time to start picking up the pace in Jeff City as we wrap up another week. What's the latest coming out of the Capitol in this session?
Well, I'll tell you, the Judiciary Committee that I'm the chairman of, we have been nonstop just pumping bills out, hearing bills. I just had an interview with Jamie Allman. You can go back and listen to that on the podcast, covering some of the bills that we have been hearing. One of the bills I hope we can get referred is one I filed this week, which is the Anti-Epstein Child Protection Act, which would allow for the death penalty when you have perpetrators that have raped, sexually abused kids or trafficked them. But a lot of these bills are hitting the floor in the Missouri Senate, not as fast as the Missouri House. And I think next week you're going to start seeing some of these bills that we had a couple of weeks ago come up to the floor. They were filibustered by the Missouri Democrats when the Dems were literally filibustering everything. I think now they kind of got that out of their system, and they're willing to work and wheel and deal on some priorities of theirs as well. So I believe next week we might see my Senate Bill 888, which is dealing with juvenile crime, catch and release of a lot of these juveniles, getting them the resources that they need to turn their lives around. And actually, we're going to be including some sentencing reform in there as well, truth in sentencing. So if you're a victim of, let's just take one of these juvenile crimes. Let's say you are assaulted by a juvenile who's certified as an adult. You think he's going away for 5 years, and then in 2 months he's back out on the streets. We have to fix that. We just saw 2 officers that were murdered down in Christian County in the state of Missouri. And it's egregious to see this guy's rap sheet, who murdered them, and he should have been locked up for a very long time. But the Missouri House, they're chugging along as well. We've got a lot of big things that are coming up, which I think you'll see before we hit that halfway mark of spring break. I think next week you're going to see a lot of action on the bill to cut income taxes, to phase out income tax. I know that they've sent over to the Missouri Senate several bills dealing with capping the growth for personal property tax or phasing out personal property tax. So there's a lot of options on the table when it comes to cutting taxes this year. Public safety, there's a lot of bills moving through the system. So I think now finally the Missouri Senate is starting to pick up the pace, and I think the leadership in both chambers recognizes, we're only a couple weeks from that legislative spring break, which I still think is a ridiculous thing that senators and reps who were only there from January through May get an entire week off. But needless to say, we're almost at that halfway point, and there is a lot of good and a lot of things that are still left on the table as of right now that I think is finally being recognized. So keep your eyes peeled on Missouri House and Missouri Senate next week, as there's going to be a lot of action, in my opinion, legislatively.
So there's a lot there that I want to touch on, but let's start with the idea of the death penalty for anyone who sexually assaults a child or is guilty of human trafficking. Let's just put a hearty hear, and amen on that, and whatever we can do to put that bill in the express lane. Is that an issue that you think will get bipartisan or widespread support? Because if there's anybody that has a problem with that bill or that idea, I sure would like to talk to them.
Well, I'd like to do more than just talk to them. They're supporting pedophilia and supporting these attacks on the innocent. But this is a bill that last year and the year before, Senator Mike Moon down in Lawrence County, southern Missouri, was the sponsor of. And I think even it might have been my first year in the Senate he had that. We hear that in Judiciary. When I became chairman of Judiciary, we fast-tracked it every single year. And I looked and I said, Senator Moon, where is this bill this year? Because I think it's now more important than ever, because we're starting to see with the unveiling of the Epstein files, and all of a sudden in our mentions, these Democrats are attacking Republican members in the state of Missouri for not doing enough on the Epstein files. And I always tell them to tune in to Stand and Fight every Sunday from 6 to 8 p.m. Now it's going to be 6 to 7 p.m. because of this new show. But I think it's time for the Democrats to put up or shut up. If you want to sit here and say that you support throwing the book at these pedophiles and these horrible people that are out there, then support this. And in the past, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that some of the Democrats had supported this as an amendment on some criminal law reform. So we'll see. I know there are a couple bills on the calendar that could come up next week dealing with pedophilia, dealing with sex offenders, dealing with public safety. And I'm going to have a very long conversation with these Democrats who have gone on talk shows and Democrat media saying that Republicans aren't doing enough to protect children in the state of Missouri. Well, this will be the tip of the spear at protecting kids in the state.
Yeah, amen. And definitely please keep us posted on the progress of that bill as it makes its way through, because that's one that should be an absolute no-brainer. And like I said, should be in the express lane to get accomplished. You mentioned income tax and personal property tax. Those two issues, kind of under the same umbrella, tax issues, but, both have to be sort of unpacked individually. What do you think of the momentum behind those two initiatives and the likelihood of getting something accomplished this session on one or both of these issues?
Well, I would say, there is a lot of momentum on reforming and or getting rid of personal property tax, real property tax, income tax. And I'll jump back to the income tax because it kind of all ties in, or it could tie in. But even this week, there was a bill by Senator Justin Brown on allowing for cities and counties to put on the ballot an increase on sales tax to fund libraries. Well, myself and my colleague, my friend, Senator Adam Schnelting in St. Charles County, both of us have been working with our new board in St. Charles County. You know, a couple years ago, we all heard that book, How to Bang Like a Porn Star. That was in public libraries, accessible to kids in St. Charles County. Well, a lot has changed since then. And we had an amendment that said, okay, well, the people of St. Charles County will get this option. You can vote on maybe allowing a sales or use tax to fund libraries, but it's going to be getting rid of dollar for dollar, repealing all of the money that's coming out of personal property and real property taxes. So slowly fading away personal property and real property over a 3-year period. Now, that bill got laid over. There's not a final vote, but that amendment didn't have any opposition whatsoever. And we also had other legislators, Republicans and Democrats, saying, man, you guys in St. Charles County are pretty smart. we want to do that too, but I think it's a little bit too late. So when that bill comes back up, I think you might see some other legislators saying, hey, we want to do the same thing. Like if you're going to go to a use tax on or a consumption tax that's funding some of these resources, we want to get rid of the current taxation, which we think is archaic. And in my opinion, I said it on the Senate floor several times. I said, look, let me be clear. Taxation is theft, especially when you're coming after our property, our homes, our personal property. But tying this back into the income tax, there is the bill that is in committee over in the Missouri House. Several members, the vice chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Ben Keithley out of Chesterfield, and then Bishop Davidson down in Springfield, Greene County area. These guys have been working diligently on amending what started out as a poorly written bill. Then it got a heck of a lot better, and then a lot of ideas on, okay, what are we going to do, putting it on the ballot. There is a talk right now, if the voters approve. Now, this would all be contingent upon if the voters approved the plan to open up the Constitution and get rid of Missouri income tax. How are we going to, quote unquote, replace it is what all the politicians say. But the plan in the Missouri House from the conservatives and the Missouri Freedom Caucus are, okay, well, these cities, if you're going to go to a consumption tax, if you're going to start allowing for increases on certain things rather than, paying it by way of the income tax, any windfall you get, any new money that you get, you must get rid of either personal property tax or real property tax. So I think that is going to be debated, either voted out of committee next week and then debated on the floor soon thereafter. The next 2 weeks, and I think it's all going to happen before that legislative spring break halftime show, so to speak, in the legislature. That's going to be a huge topic of using this as an opportunity, a prime opportunity, to also get rid of not only the income tax, but have a path to get rid of personal property and real property tax in certain counties across the state of Missouri.
That all is, that sounds like we're on a great track. And in the past, I would have thought maybe, this would be a lot of hope and, what we're trying to get across the finish line, but probably not realistic. There's kind of a new attitude in Jeff City, and I feel like these things that you're talking about are, much more of a reality and possible after what we saw last session and finally tackling big issues like IP reform. So that all sounds fantastic, and I know you and many others in the Freedom Caucus and throughout the party are trying to, as hard as you can to get some of these things done. But allow me to sprinkle a little pessimism on the conversation.
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of it to put on there.
Right? The idea of cutting income taxes and personal property taxes, I mean, I think it's what needs to happen. It's what's right for the state. It's what's right for the citizens of Missouri. But cutting those taxes and also attempting to cut the overall budget, I feel like at some point we're going to hit a line where even some quote unquote conservative lawmakers are going to say, "Wait a minute, we can't lose our little pet project over here. We can't lose the funding that that I think is important for whatever issue or personal project that they have." Are you afraid that may happen as well, or are you optimistic that we can cut taxes and cut the budget all in a relatively short amount of time?
Well, I think the Republicans and I honestly believe that most of the Democrats understand by looking at states like Kansas who have cut taxation but did not cut spending, it was not the right path. And that was a hodgepodge that mixed wanting to keep your pet projects, but also to appease the voters back at home. And it does not work. Then you look at other states where they effectively cut or get rid of certain taxes like the income tax or personal property tax. You absolutely have to. I'm saying there is 100% chance that you will do this the right way if you also cut spending. And times are changing in Jefferson City, and I will say it is thanks to two things. One, the Missouri Freedom Caucus. We are standing in the gap, reminding leadership, reminding other Republicans the promises that we make to voters every single year when we're up there, every single campaign season. So let's not forget about that. And it's built into our Missouri GOP platform, the Republican Party platform. Number two, leadership has changed too. A lot of leadership changes in the governor's office, and him running on the promise to get rid of the income tax. And if you're going to do it the right way, if you're going to attract more businesses, more people here to the state of Missouri, we have to do it the right way. We can't be like Kansas. You know, God knows. Look at the tax deal that they just offered their constituents out there in Kansas by throwing everything at getting the Chiefs there, and they're going to be hurting for many years. Mark my words, because of that. So we absolutely have to cut spending. There are plenty of Republicans that are not members of the Freedom Caucus that are saying the same thing in the Missouri House and the Missouri Senate. So the House is going to get the first bite at the apple. They're going to be able to look at the governor's requested budget. They always come in a heck of a lot lower. We do have a new appropriations chair in the Missouri Senate this year, which here's a curveball. The former senator who was the chairman of the Appropriations Committee this week did something he's able to do. He can do it, but it's never been done, and it's a senator offering his entire own budget, just filing other bills that would replace the budget. So I think once that happens, where we have the House's budget in our possession and we're debating these bills, I think it's going to be pay-per-view type of television where the former budget chair is going to try and inject himself into changing the budget that the Appropriations Committee spent many, many hours and weeks and months finalizing. So that's going to be something I would love to see streamed on pay-per-view TV. But no, essentially, back to your question, I'm very pessimistic when it comes to anything politics, but this is a year where I think everybody kind of agrees we have to cut spending, we have to cut taxes, and we have to do it the right way unless or we're going to look like Kansas.
Only a couple minutes left here with Missouri Senator Nick Schroer. In just to wrap up the budget discussion there, we know that almost everything in a legislative session in Missouri, revolves around the budget. It's the one thing that is the mandate for you guys to pass. It's you have to do the budget basically, but not before, but you have to do the budget, which means it very often, takes up a good chunk of time. Where are we at in that process with finalizing the budget, being able to put that behind us and move forward on these other issues?
I would say that that's going to be after spring break. Yeah. I think the budget chairs kind of want to see what the likelihood of cutting the income tax, putting that on the ballot. And most of the discussion on how we do that, how we cut the income tax, will likely be next year. It's going to be a two-step process of putting it on the ballot to change the Constitution, to allow us to get rid of the Missouri income tax. But I think that even though the hearings are happening, I think even today there was another appropriations hearing in the Missouri Senate. Likely that won't hit the floor until after spring break. So the biggest thing to watch in the next couple of weeks is the income tax in the Missouri House. The Missouri Senate, you're going to be focusing on a lot of public safety over the next week and a half. And then thereafter, once the spring break hits, when we come back at end of March and going into April, I think you're going to start looking at some of these bills that the Missouri House sent over dealing with phasing out, cutting personal property tax. That's going to be a huge issue. but many others to cover. You can go to house.mo.gov, senate.mo.gov, listen in, watch, and I would advise you, if you want to help out, if you want to be on the grassroots, figure out where some of these bills have flaws. Figure out listening to the appropriations and the budget hearings. Figure out where we can cut, so then you can give us that information, the Missouri Freedom Caucus, the members who are not on the Appropriations Committee. We can do the work and actually start trying to amend the budget as well.
Last question for today, Senator. I asked this of Rodney Boyd when we talked to him yesterday. I mentioned how, you don't have to be there. You can, but you obviously being there will give you an even better idea of the feeling. But, every session, every, political gathering has a vibe, a sort of attitude. You watch the State of the Union, you watch hearings on, Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. now, and it feels, everything in the national government feels very negative and very divided and very hateful. I asked Rodney yesterday, what is the vibe of this session here in Missouri, in Jeff City? And his answer was the vibe is of cautious optimism. Would you agree with that? How would you describe the vibe moving forward in this 2026 session?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. There's going to be some areas where I know there's going to be some major hiccups, like with these video lottery terminals. The House sent the bill over, the Senate sent it to a really bad committee, and I know there's going to be some warfare behind the scenes on trying to figure out a resolution to that. And as always, I try to inject myself into these things to make sure that we're getting past those hurdles. We can continue focusing on the big prize of cutting taxes, education choice, public safety, all of that good stuff. But yeah, cautious optimism, and I think that came because of peace through strength, because the Missouri Freedom Caucus had reignited this spirit to fight within the Missouri Republican Party. We, moved through session last year. We utilized the previous question. The Democrats got ticked off, and we said, look, if you would have come to the table, if you would have negotiated, we wouldn't have had to do that. So I think we're at a point now, it's a turning point to where if we start to see some movement on some of these big bills, like my Senate Bill 888 dealing with crime and public safety, if we start seeing some progress on that, then yes, we can continue being optimistic. If not, then you might see some more peace through strength as we head into the latter months of the session.
Senator Nick Schroer, always appreciate your time, my friend. Tune in this and every Sunday, 6 p.m. here on News Talk STL for Stand and Fight. And as we wrap it up, it's another one for the good guys. Thank you,
Amen.
Senator.
God
Talk
bless
to you
you all.
soon. Yeah, back at you, buddy. Talk to you soon. Great stuff there from Missouri Senator Nick Schroer. All right, going to get back out into some of the national issues of the day, including more fallout from the State of the Union address. Day after Trump's State of the Union speech, the View hosts are mad at Democrats. This is from a new article at the Daily Wire from Virginia Kruta. We're going to talk to Virginia about that situation and more next.
For podcast articles and more, find us on newstalkstl.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
During the State of the Union, President Trump said Iran's making missiles to hit the U.S. Holy smokes! We'll ask Steve Bucci about that and more at 4:20.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Hey, folks. Jamie Allman here for Newsteader's Fine Jewelry right there at Doherty Ferry and Big Bend. WowDiamonds.com. It's Wow Diamonds for a reason. These are beautiful lab-grown diamonds. They are gorgeous. They will blind you when you walk in and see them, but that's a good thing. Great engagement sets, wedding sets, all these beautiful God-created gems, sapphires, rubies, you name it, garnets, and also all the gold you need, and the famous bull of a watch, WowDiamonds.com.
The Herzog Foundation is the vision of its founder, Stanley Herzog, and it exists to promote quality Christ-centered K-12 education nationwide.
Hi, this is Chris Stegall with the Herzog Foundation. We offer a wide variety of resources relevant to today's families, including a free online publication called The Lion. The lion is one of God's most majestic creatures, symbolizing strength and courage. Named for its attributes, the Lion publication carries articles covering a wide range of topics facing American families and culture, especially related to the education of children. The Lion can be found online at readlion.com. That's READ lion.com.
Sign up for The Lion at readlion.com and find dozens of must-read articles published every day. Visit readlion.com and subscribe for the weekly and daily digests so you never miss an article. Readlion.com. That's readlion.com.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Money Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on the St. Louis radio airwaves for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. You can now hear Doug and Safe Money Radio 2 times every weekend on News Talk STL. But in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeMoneyRadio.com. You could also reach Doug at 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233.
Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities, LLLP, member FINRA and SIPC.
This hour of Colombo Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. Thanks again to Missouri Senator Nick Schroer for joining us in that last segment. Now on the line with us from the Daily Wire, thedailywire.com, our good friend Virginia Kruta. And Virginia, I am looking forward to hearing about this. The day after Trump's State of the Union address, The View hosts are mad at Democrats. What are Sonny and Joy and Whoopi? What?
Oh my God!
What's their problem now?
Tony, it's not Friday yet. Oh
what?
God.
I just said her name, Whoopi. What? There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So they're talking about the State of the Union, which the whole setup was ridiculous because all day Tuesday before the speech happened, they asked. They kept saying, "I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to watch it. You know, we'll get the highlights and we'll talk to you about it tomorrow." Well, then they actually did end up watching it.
Of course.
But in the preview, Joy Behar was like, Democrats shouldn't even go. They're going to dignify it. They're going to give it legitimacy by showing up. Like any one of the Democrats in that chamber gave legitimacy to anything.
Or dignity.
Right. So, anyway, but Sunny Hostin disagreed. She's like, the spectacle, and it's, you know, you have to respect the office and respect the process and whatever. Well, by Wednesday morning, Sunny Hostin was like, yeah, Joy, you were right. They shouldn't have gone. Largely because they made themselves look like asses on television, and now they're mad at Trump because it's his fault they did it.
And they fell for. I mean, listen. I thought the president did a great job of putting Democrats on the spot over and over again. What were your takeaways? What was your?
So the reason.
Go ahead.
Well, the reason that they were mad at Democrats, though, she singled out Ilhan Omar specifically. She's like, she gave him that moment, like by yelling and refusing to stand up, and by you know, catcalling and like yelling during the speech, she gave Trump the moment that he wanted, which was basically to point at the Democrats and say these people are crazy, right? So it was the Democrats' fault that, and if they hadn't gone, then that wouldn't have happened. Except he would have said they didn't even show up for this.
So actually having
there was no win for them here.
So actually having decorum and dignity wasn't part. It was either like, don't go because you can't control yourself, or go and make a fool of yourself. There's another option there, Virginia, that they're forgetting. Like you could just go and be a professional.
Well, I mean, and then you look at John Fetterman, who they interviewed him on Fox afterward. He's like, look, if I agree with you and I think it's something that's good for America, I'm going to stand up and clap. And he said, look, I stood up and I applauded for Erica Kirk. Like, can we not just have some consideration for a young widow with little kids? And, like, how do you not stand up for that, he was saying. And same with the Venezuelan, the political dissident who was released, and military veterans who received the Medal of Honor, and the U.S. hockey team. And Fetterman's like, I'm all about it. I'm going to stand up if I agree with it. If I don't agree with it, I won't. But I'm also not going to yell and disrupt the whole thing.
Right.
Like,
right.
John Fetterman, whether you and there are plenty of things that I disagree with him on. But he knows how to attend an event by the opposing party.
Yeah. No, he at least is, he's honest about his his thoughts and his feelings, and very often at least he's got a little bit of common sense. Whether I'm like you, it's very much the Joe Manchin.
Well, I mean, he is a senator from Pennsylvania. You have to expect a little purple out of him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be solid blue all the time.
So
if he's accurately representing Pennsylvania, he's going to do purple.
Yep, absolutely. So what did you think overall of the speech? Did the president, was it a big win for the president? Was it, just not impactful in any way? Was it negative? What was your takeaway?
I will say that it was the best he could have done in the situation that we're in. So we're in a situation where you can't stand up and tell everybody that everything is great about affordability and the economy, because whether or not it is, and it is getting better, and the stock market looks better, and everything is getting better, but the average person isn't feeling it yet because there's lag. Yes, they're noticing the gas prices might be a little less expensive, but there are things at the grocery store that aren't, or the price is coming down, but the package is just, and like you're still seeing a little bit of a pinch in the everyday expenses. Housing prices aren't coming down fast enough for most people. So can you say that? Can you stand up there? It's like when the Biden administration was posting about how we should all be grateful that we just saved 16 cents on our 4th of July barbecue, right? Nobody feels that. Right. So he couldn't get up there and be like, the economy's gangbusters, folks. He couldn't. And he didn't. So I mean, he said, look, it's good. These things are good. These things are good. This is what we're working on. And that was very good. Focusing on immigration was very good. Focusing on the people who are being removed from the country and why. That was good. So he did hit a lot of key points, but what I noticed was how overwhelmingly positive most of the speech was. And that, not just because he was pausing to honor veterans and to bring in the hockey team and to do the rest, because, I mean, there's a little bit of a spectacle to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but
that's part of it. That's part of that positive vibe, I think, by putting those things in.
No, but he wasn't up there talking about the things that are bugging you now. Those are Joe Biden's fault. Or aren't you glad Kamala's not here right now? There was no singling out of Democrats, and I think that was very smart, because he doesn't want to give any of them. It's kind of like you don't want to give them more name recognition than they have. And I realize everybody knows who Kamala Harris is, but if he talks about her from that stage, he legitimizes her 2028 campaign by acknowledging that she's a threat.
Yeah.
And he didn't do that. He didn't stand up there and point the finger at Joe Biden for an hour and a half. And that's what Joe Biden did even 3 years into his presidency.
That's what Barack Obama did for 8 years of his presidency.
Well, I know.
Blame Bush.
But seeing him shift away from that tone in a very obvious fashion, I think that was good. And that's why you look at the CNN flash poll. They were polling people who were watching the State of the Union. And at the beginning of the speech, 54% said they believed that Trump's policies, whether or not they liked his personality, Trump's policies were going to take the country in the right direction. 54% said yes. And at the end of the speech, that was up to 64, the same group polled again, same question.
I was surprised at just how predictable TDS is, and how the most obvious trap laid by the president, like the stand, if you believe that the government should protect citizens over illegal immigrants, and knowing that they wouldn't stand and them falling for it. I've complained a lot about how Republicans and the president, they have an uphill battle to climb to get their message out and to expose the lunacy of these Democrats. I thought he did a really good job with that, and I thought the Democrats walked right into his traps multiple times the other night.
Right, they did, and you get them trying to split hairs afterwards. Well, like, we weren't, not standing because we don't love America. We were not standing because he called people illegal.
Oh.
Well,
that came off. And I got that. Yeah, they communicated that well.
I don't know if you saw this. If you saw this, the big thing that they're losing their minds about today. Dick Durbin was talking about it. Apparently, in the first 10 months of 2025, so this includes like 19 days of Joe Biden's administration, but he didn't do it. 261 DACA recipients were picked up by ICE. Okay. And 86 of them were deported.
Okay.
And, of course, the Democrats are mad because they're supposed to be getting a path to citizenship and special treatment, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Kristi Noem sent a letter back to them, and she's like, 261 were picked up, 86 were deported. Oh, by the way, 241 of them had criminal histories outside of their civil immigration infractions.
Yeah.
200, that's 92% of the people they picked up had criminal histories outside of civil immigration violations.
There you go.
And Dick Durbin's like, nope, we're fighting for these guys.
Right, yeah, yeah. Again, just falling right into the obvious trap, but their Trump derangement syndrome, it just gets the best of them. They can't help themselves.
The 20 side of every 80-20 issue imaginable. And then they're shocked when people are like, we don't know, this is not cool, guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire, dailywire.com. Check out our articles each and every day there on thedailywire.com. And, of course, every week with us here on Colombo and Company. Virginia, always great to talk with you, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you. Great stuff there, as always, from Virginia Kruta. All right, we're going to keep this conversation going. A little bit more fallout from the State of the Union. We're going to talk a little bit about Zoran Mondani, and we're going to be joined by Dr. Randy Tolber from The Randy Tolber Show, which you can hear every Saturday morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. here on News Talk STL. Dr. Tolber joins us next. People that fall apart.
When water troubles strike, call the family you can trust. Tim Jones here for Ambassador Plumbing, serving our community since 2018 with 25 years of master plumbing expertise from Tim Morris and his hand-picked team. Whether it's a simple faucet repair or a complete bathroom remodel, if water runs to it or through it, they do it. From residential service calls to commercial to new construction, the folks at Ambassador are your neighbors treating you like family. Ambassador Plumbing, where faith meets craftsmanship. 636-383-6932 or ambassadorplumbing.com. That's ambassadorplumbing.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity Wealth Management. Hi, Chris.
How are you, Vic?
I don't want to put anybody else down, but that when you go up and visit you at Serenity Wealth, your place looks like home.
So a lot of financial advisory offices, they have, the big mahogany desk or the big marble entryways and things like that. The stock market channel on the TV when you walk in the door, right? That doesn't really drive a good conversation. Good financial guidance and advice starts with a good conversation. People are nervous. People are afraid to talk about finances, right? And so you can see a little standoffish. Well, my objective is to try to have a good, casual conversation. By having those conversations about life, goals, objectives, it's what makes me understand what our financials are supposed to fund.
So if somebody does want to have a good conversation, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Our website is the best way to do that because you can get all the information you need, understand where we are, get a little bit more information, all that. SerenityWealthNow.com.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news at Town Hall. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton told House lawmakers today she had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes.
During a closed-door deposition with members of the House Oversight Committee, Hillary Clinton said she had no idea about Epstein's criminal activities. In her opening statement that she shared on social media, the former First Lady said she did not recall ever encountering Epstein, although Bill Clinton had flown with Epstein for charity trips. Her deposition kicked off 2 days of testimony that will also include the former president. Greg Clugston, Washington.
The Republican chairman of that House Oversight Committee, James Comer, says the committee has a lot of questions about Epstein and his connections.
No one's accusing at this moment the Clintons of any wrongdoing. They're going to have due process, but we have a lot of questions, and the purpose of the whole investigation is to try to understand many things about Epstein. How did he accumulate so much wealth? How was he able to surround himself with some of the most powerful men in the world?
Oversight Committee ranking member, Democrat Robert Garcia, says he wants to see President Trump sit for a deposition.
I hope that Chairman Comer and the Republicans will join us in demanding that the person who actually appears more times in the files than the former president, who we want to speak with, is President Donald Trump. And so let's get President Trump in front of our committee.
Cuba claims 10 passengers on a boat that opened fire on its soldiers were armed Cubans living inside the United States trying to infiltrate the island and carry out terrorist attacks. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. will investigate what happened.
As it stands now, the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard, others are involved. The majority of the information we still possess is what Cuban authorities are providing both the public and the U.S. government.
Cuba says those involved have what they call a known history of criminal and violent activity. More from townhall.com.
The U.S. dollar is under pressure, and some analysts are openly warning about the long-term stability of U.S. currency dominance. Whether you call it currency debasement or the collapse of the dollar, the risk is real. And when confidence in the U.S. dollar shifts, gold and silver historically respond. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000 to get your free gold investment kit. You'll also receive a free copy of Ken Rogoff's book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000.
Joe Fallon did something smart. He saved hundreds on auto insurance switching to Progressive. With that money, he commissioned a portrait of himself. Does Joe already know what he looks like? Yes. Do guests know what he looks like? Also yes. But not as art. It's Joe's savings, and if he wants to spend it on a velvet painting of himself with a white tiger at his feet, we say, roar, Joe, roar. Switch and see if you could save with Progressive and treat yourself. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Bigger warm-up on the way from Friday. Now, it's still cool in the morning, a low of 37, but warms nicely, a high of 71. The record is 86, so no record, but sunny and 71. What a great spring-like day for Friday. Saturday, a little cooler with partly to mostly cloudy skies, a high of 63. There is a 20% chance for a little spot shower Saturday. The bigger story is going to be Sunday, much colder with rain that may mix with or change to snow Sunday night into Monday morning. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Fox News Commentary with Will Kane, next.
If you're over 40 and plan to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you've built becomes just as important as growing it. And that's where Noble Gold Investments comes in. They help investors reduce risk by adding gold and silver to their portfolios. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com, noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult with your tax or financial professional before making investment decisions.
Here's Will Kane.
$1 billion campaign ad cut in a matter of 30 seconds, live, in front of the nation, in front of your eyes, at the State of the Union address. President Donald Trump put a very simple proposition forward to the members of the United States Congress and Senate. Is it your job, primarily, to represent the interest of American citizens, or is it your job to concern yourself with illegal immigrants? He asked the entire body to stand if they see their jobs as described, as serving Americans first. Here is the response.
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
Democrats in Congress remain seated.
For more commentary like this, go to foxnewspodcast.com.
News, analysis, opinion.
Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long.
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL. Great stuff at the 2 o'clock hour there with Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire and Missouri State Senator Nick Schroer. Go back and check out our podcast if you missed any of that. Subscribing to the Colombo and Company podcast is the best way to make sure you never miss anything that happens here on the show. We are going to talk to my co-hosts from the Bluff City Outdoors Show a little bit later on in this hour, about 20 minutes or so from now. But right now, speaking of Saturday mornings, Bluff City Outdoors Show, of course, every Saturday at 11 a.m. Every Saturday, 6 to 9 a.m. is the Randy Tolber Show here on News Talk STL, and Dr. Tolber is on the line with us now. Doc, everybody still reacting and unpacking the State of the Union. Let's start there with this conversation since you and I haven't had a chance to talk yet. How do you think the president did Tuesday night with his record-setting, at least lengthwise, State of the Union address?
Yeah, well, I was glad to see that the reason it was record-setting, Tony, was that mainly it was a long, well-scripted and highly dramatized production, and he really stayed pretty much on the script. It was just there was a lot of stuff going on, really highlighting everyday Americans and hero Americans on many different levels. And I was just pleased as punch that he didn't attack the Supreme Court right to their face like Barack Hussein Obama did. So that was a major victory. I mean, he did say it was an unfortunate decision, but that's absolutely the right way to approach that. And I think the little trap that he set for the Democrats was very, very effective. I mean, it's like you're going to stand up if you're for American citizens. Of course, I guess if you're not, just stay seated. If you're for illegals, and they stayed seated. So that's going to be great for campaigns, whether it's midterm or next presidential campaign. Really says a lot about establishing the worldviews and the policy, positions and postures of both sides. He did a good job of really laying out the case very well.
Well, and I just pointed this out. You nailed a couple of things there that I've been talking about all week, and that Virginia even just pointed out the vibe of the speech being very positive. That you just touched on. I think was well done. I think it was important to keep that speech positive, especially when the whole world and the Democrats are, telling everybody that it's just going to be a hate-filled, negative speech full of attacks. And it wasn't. It was a very positive vibe throughout the entire message. And to your point about the Democrats, as I just said with Virginia, and I've been saying all week, they fell right into his traps. And the traps were so obvious. But the Trump derangement syndrome runs so deep in their blood and DNA that even when it's a very obvious trap to catch them, looking ridiculous in front of the American citizen, they still fall for it. How do you not stand when somebody asks, should we put citizens before illegal aliens? And how do you not stand for a Ukrainian mother who's gone through, a terrible tragedy and attack on their family, but they didn't, and because they just can't bring themselves to applaud anything that comes out of the mouth of the president.
No, you're right. And, for a long time, I wanted to resist the notion, Tony, that TDS is really a psychiatric condition.
I did too, but it is.
I just didn't want to go there, all right? Because it came out of a political construct, but I think it's real. I mean, I don't know whether it'll ever find its way into the medical literature in an establishment kind of way, but
you should write it, Doc. You could be the guy who makes it. You could be the doctor that makes it official.
It is a psychosis of some type, and if you think about what defines a psychosis, it's really being out of contact, out of touch with reality, where the mind perceives things that are not real and holds these delusional thoughts. And I don't know any other way to escape to frame it when you look at Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib saying there that you, Donald Trump, killed Americans. You murdered America. Whoa, wait a minute. That is the kind of thing you'll see a schizophrenic on the corner of Washington and Biddle Street saying, right? I mean, that's the problem. That's what you see. But that kind of rhetoric and vitriolic, you could see the vitriol and the hate in their eyes. Mm-hmm. And I think it just really highlighted. We live in two Americas. There's two Americas coexisting now in the same geography, right? All in what we call these as Barack Obama said, 57 United States. But that's what I think's going on here. And it's you watch it and you go, I can't believe it. I actually think there's a bit of psychosis in all politicians when they get to that level where they just want to deny reality. But this is at a different level, and it really was in full display. By the way, we have to also highlight what a hero John Fetterman is becoming, huh? I mean, he shook the president's hands, and when asked about it, he's like, "What is wrong with these Democrats? What's the problem?" So I shook the president's hand. What are they talking about? I think good for Fetterman. I disagree with some of his views in terms of the proper role of government, but hey, what the heck? I mean, the way he conducts himself is, I wish, the way we could get back to all politicians conducting themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I agree with you completely, but it's also a sad statement that we're propping up John Fetterman just for having common sense. Like just for being a normal, professional, non-hateful politician, human being. He's suddenly a hero for just being normal.
Normal is being like an existentially wonderful thing when you're just being a normal civil person. Isn't that wild? You're right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I wanted to get into a couple of the moments there that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet as we've been unpacking this speech for the last couple of days. One of the big moments, of course, outside the stand, if you believe that the government should protect American citizens, which, that will forever to me be the centerpiece of this speech on Tuesday. But the moment about the insider trading, polling data, tracking voters' real-time reactions to President Donald Trump's State of the Union address showed independents and Republicans were highly motivated when the president urged members of Congress to pass restrictions on congressional stock trading. Democratic voters, however, seemed less enthused. This moment in Trump's address was one of the few moments during the speech when Democrats inside the House chamber, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, offered the president a standing ovation, prompting the president to say, quote, "They stood up for that. I can't believe it. I can't believe it." that they stood up for something that he mentioned, and then went on to say, did Nancy stand? Did Nancy Pelosi stand? Because this is, about her. Although there are plenty of Republicans that have taken advantage, that have grown their wealth in a very suspicious fashion after being elected to office. But the test, one of these tests that's been discussed here, administered by Lee Carter, the president of Melansky and Partners, showed that after Trump said the Stop Insider Trading Act must be passed without delay, Democrats remained largely stagnant, but Republicans and independents spiked in the real-time polling as being very supportive of what the president said there. What do you think of that? What do you think of that moment and the fact that he even got Pocahontas to stand and applaud one of his initiatives?
Well, she also approved of his initiative to either limit or ban the purchase of single-family homes by big, venture capital corporations, right? That then put them up for rent and take them out of the circulation. I think that's really something to think about. I will tell you though, we've got this insider trading thing. There may be some negative downside to it, and I hope when they work through this, I think everyone I think is in general in favor of the principle of, you shouldn't benefit out of insider knowledge that then turns into a trade that benefits you. I think we'd all agree that. On the other hand, I'd like to vote for Tony Colombo for congressman. I think that'd be a good thing. I wish I could do that. But I'll bet you that Tony Colombo may have some stocks that have appreciated, and to force Tony just to become a public servant and every guy kind of public servant. I mean, you're a prominent radio broadcaster and you have a family business, but you're not Donald Trump, right?
Yeah, no.
What if Tony had to? Well, maybe you are Donald Trump. Maybe there's some investments I didn't know about. But I'm afraid that if we're going to force people to divest themselves or to sell stock and then put it into some kind of a mutual fund or a money market or something, think of the capital gains tax. Think of the tax implications of that. And would there potentially be a discouragement for everyday people to become politicians, to become leaders, to become elected officials? And I mean, there's those nuances like that I do think about. It crosses my mind. So done in the right way, I'm all for this kind of a restriction on people benefiting from their service directly.
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to probably do that.
And it's and you bring up really good points there. And I would say that, there shouldn't be any type of tax penalty, or punishment if you are elected to office, federal office like that. And you have to pause your trading or your investments or whatever it may be.
Or maybe you just have to keep a static portfolio. If you've got, if you inherited some stock, some big name Gulf Oil, I don't know, whatever, pick it, IBM from grandpa, and it's appreciated a lot. You shouldn't be forced to sell it. For instance, if the rule says, I don't know what the rule is going to be, you can't buy any new stock. But there's these nuances that are really, really very, very important. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe in the quest for headlines, they haven't thought that through enough. And maybe some thoughtful congressmen have thought, because there are people. I think it was Bob Onder I talked with about this. Maybe I'm wrong, but who raised some of those objections? Like, wait, we don't want to punish people just because they're in Congress, right?
Yeah.
And there's got to be a way forward to where you protect people's honest, long-held stock holdings without maybe forcing them, or if you do force it, maybe they go into some kind of a tax-sheltered environment or something. I don't know. We got to figure that out. But in general, it was good to see Pocahontas on board.
I agree, and I agree with you, and I think it's smart to point out that those nuances exist, and that have to be sort of untangled or figured out. However, with the pension and the health care and the many other benefits that come along with serving Congress or Senate, I think that there's still a lot of shiny incentives to run for office for many people, even if that is something that has to go away. And for me, Doc, it's not even, it's not the ability to trade or to be involved in the stock market that bothers me with congressmen and women. It's the fact that they can influence these areas. It's the fact that their votes and their laws that they have influence over, they can direct the stock market in very many ways. So it's that, it's that inside influence to me that is way more of the issue than, whether or not they should be allowed to or not. If there was a way that they could still be involved and not have any influence, I'd be fine with that. But it's the fact that they have so much sway over the markets.
Well, that's our fault.
I think they can't do
That's
it.
the voters' fault ultimately, right? Because we've given them so much power over this economy. It still troubles me when I hear people say, I want Donald Trump to lower prices. I want Barack Obama to give me health care. Wait a minute. What the founding fathers are rolling? I can feel the earth under me, and they're probably out in Philadelphia rolling over in their graves. I mean, what are we talking about? We've given these people so much power and so much influence over things that probably they have no business influencing, certainly at the federal level at least. I mean, if I'm going to have someone influencing, I want to have it as close as I can, make it Jefferson City or better even yet at the county council, right? But that's the problem. That's why these kind of problems and this seedbed for corrupt weeds to grow, that's why it's so big and so fertile. We, the people, have come to where we just expect redistribution. That's what we like because we vote for it, don't we?
Yeah.
Seems like we do.
Doc, I want to talk a little bit about Zoran Mondani before we run out of time. So last question about the State of the Union, just overall. Well, what grade or score would you give the president? Did he help himself in this midterm election year? Was it nothing? Was it negative? What do you think?
I give him a B plus. The reason he didn't get into A territory is because I don't think he didn't channel enough of the Bill Clinton "I feel your pain," because there are people out there that are really struggling. I looked at my insurance rates the other day. My homeowner's insurance with a fairly economical company from 23 to 25 went up 70%.
Yeah,
I couldn't find the 24 declaration, but I mean these are the kind of things that really I looked at that and I went, honey, we gotta shop this around. And that's what people are talking about. They're talking about the cost of their insurance, their electric bill, their water bill, when they get their tires changed. I had to have a guy come out and do a little plumbing work just to drive into the driveway, $150 just to make a service call. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. And that's because they're passing along costs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think recognizing the reality of everyday Americans' kitchen table items. Yes, I appreciate what's been done. Yes, I appreciate there's a moderation in inflation. I think just a little bit more of acknowledgement of I feel your pain would have been helpful.
Talking to Dr. Randy Tolber, Randy Tolber's show every Saturday morning, 6 a.m. here on News Talk STL. An unannounced meeting happened at the White House today. Nobody knew this was happening until it happened. President Trump met now for the second time at the White House, New York City Mayor Zoran Mondani. And just like the last meeting, at least initially, both sides are, complimenting each other, even though they are very opposed most of the time in the media and when they speak about each other. If you remember the last time Mondani was at the White House, it was kind of a love fest, and so far this looking the same way. Mondani posted this afternoon right after the meeting, quote, "I had a productive meeting with President Trump this afternoon. I'm looking forward to building more housing in New York City." Another meeting between the president and the mayor of New York. I think Zoran Mondani has been a disaster as predicted. I was very critical of him this week in his handling of the attack on New York City police officers and the snowball attack that sent several officers to the hospital. But the president seems at least willing to entertain the mayor and have meetings with him at the White House. I don't know that anything's going to come of this, but what do you make of Zoran Mondani making another appearance, and this one very unannounced and sort of out of the blue today with the president?
Well, I'm really hoping that the president scolded him and publicly rebuked him for his dismissal of what happened to those police officers. Apparently that didn't happen. That was scandalous the way he handled that, and he doubled down on it. He doesn't back.
Tell me about
just
it.
Some kids having fun.
What a joke.
That said, the only thing I can imagine in this sort of bromance that we're seeing is maybe this is just Trump's version of keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I don't know. I'm trying to look at it positively. I think Trump should separate himself from Zoran Mamdani as far as the sun is from the moon, Tony. It's a huge, huge mistake.
I agree.
would call that guy out. I would not visit him. I would not. I mean, whatever. I'd take a phone call. I don't understand. And if I did visit him, I would call him out publicly. Trump's very good at calling the fake news and calling Pocahontas and calling Omar and calling even people on his own side. Why not call out this guy for dismissing and being complacent about that attack on police officers that sent him to the freaking hospital?
Yeah, I think he likes him. I think Trump likes Mamdani as a person. That's one of the moments of the State of the Union that really hasn't been talked about at all. It kind of got lost in the shuffle, I think, but he did mention Mamdani during the State of the Union. He said, quote, "The new communist mayor of New York City. I think he's a nice guy, actually. I speak to him a lot. Bad policy, but nice guy." I think Trump likes Mamdani, and that's why he continues to talk with him and not slam him too much. I think it's one of the few instances that you can look at the Trump's relationships with various Democrats. I think Mamdani has said way more about Trump in insults and name calling than Trump has about Mamdani, and that's very rare. Usually the president is the one winning that sort of battle, but I don't know what it is, and I could be wrong, but I think the president likes Mamdani as a person. I can't see how that's possible or what there is to like about this guy, but that's the only explanation I have.
But you want to get cynical? Remember the Donald Trump that said he gave donations to Hillary Clinton and everyone else when he was a New York developer?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He's going to go back and be a New York developer.
He just has a soft spot for New York, period. You know what I mean? Like, I think he...
Yeah, well, how you can have a soft spot for someone who wants to just throw every American first principle out the window? I don't know. But that's just me. I don't know. I have a real problem with it.
And to your point about Mamdani and the snowball incident, he's more than doubled down. He's tripled down on that situation. There are people calling. There's various state legislators and organizations like the Sergeants Benevolent Association calling for investigations, and the New York Police Department Commissioner Jessica Tisch has said that that detectives are investigating that situation. But Mamdani, when asked about it again recently, has stuck to exactly what you just said and what we've been reporting all week. He said that it was a snowball fight. It's just kids having a snowball fight, and he doesn't think that there was any assault or should be any charges, even though several police officers were sent to the hospital because of the injuries.
Yeah, this is the kind of attitude that most Democrats these days endorse, that, disrespecting law enforcement is actually now a very cool thing. Mm-hmm. It's a hip thing. And most of the Democrats who endorse that have never lived a real day in real America in their life.
Yeah,
that includes
amen.
Zoran Mamdani.
And how about we flip test it, Doc? You know how much I love the flip test. What if this would have been a Muslim protest group, and and somebody in some other group went and then threw snowballs and sent Muslim protesters to the hospital? You think that Zoran Mamdani would be just dismissing it as kids having a snowball fight? I highly doubt that.
No, it would have been. Oh, there go those white men again.
Yep.
There goes all of the assault on us people of color and people of different origins, and the xenophobes are at it again. And there you go. I mean, you Christian nationalists, you need to be jailed. That's terrible. No,
that's exactly right. Exactly. And it even if the actions were literally identical, the reaction would be a total 180. Hey, great stuff as always, Doc. Really love talking to you. Don't forget to tune in every Saturday morning, 6 to 9 a.m. here on News Talk STL for the Randy Tolber Show. Dr. Randy Tolber. Thanks, my friend. Talk to you again soon.
Hey, talk to you later. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
You bet. Great stuff there. As I mentioned, Randy Tolber Show every Saturday morning, 6 to 9 a.m. here on News Talk STL. And speaking of great Saturday morning programming, Saturday mornings, 11 a.m., the Bluff City Outdoors Show, hosted by myself and Mark McMurray from Bluff City Outdoors. Our co-host, local professional fisherman Mike Marfell, is here in studio with us. We're going to talk to Mike next on Colombo Company.
Follow Tony Colombo on Twitter at Tony Colombo Talk. 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Live and local.
Listen to what those local folks are telling you.
News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Vic and Ken with something important.
Yeah, Missouri's veterans aren't done serving, they're leading.
Join us March 5th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Washington University's historic Holmes Lounge for the next mission, Missouri's Veterans Leading the Way.
Hear from General Frank Grass, former member of the Joint Chiefs, plus veteran leaders from Equifax and Scale AI.
Business leaders, veterans, and community members from across Missouri. This conversation on veteran leadership and mental health matters.
It's free and open to the public, but seating is limited.
Register now at welcomehomeforum.org.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
Few Democrats ever stood during President Trump's State of the Union address. Even as Trump said, "Stand if you agree. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens." Democrats, all of them, sat on their butts, which begs the question, would they at least honor Americans who died, nearly died for them and all Americans? Trump gave a Congressional Medal of Honor. One went to pilot Eric Stover, flying helicopter troops in to capture Maduro. And even though shot repeatedly in both legs, he maneuvered the helicopter so machine gunners could return fire. They landed safely. And then there's Navy pilot Royce Williams, who flew in World War II, Vietnam, Korea. He got into a dogfight with 7 Soviet MiGs over Korea. He shot down 4 of them. But this was such a secret mission, the full story was kept silent for 50 years. But Tuesday night, the retired Navy pilot was also awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor, our nation's highest honor, at age 100.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.
Previously, I've told you about dustless blasting, a special service offered by Wellington Environmental. It could work for you in your place. Recently, a crew removed a driveway sealer that had failed. The owner wanted to go back to the original concrete so it could be properly sealed. Dustless blasting worked. That homeowner is happy. Now, sometimes surfaces need pressure washing instead of blasting. In fact, there was an exterior stone fireplace cleansed by pressure washing, and when it dried, all the dark stain was gone. That stone had its original appearance. Wellington is versatile with blasting. Dustless blasting or whatever you need. They will evaluate and make a decision. How do you get them to your door? Very easy. Call 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Wellington Environmental, making your world great. In fact, be safe, be well with Wellington Environmental.
Hi, this is St. Louis County Councilman Mark Harder reminding you to check out my new show this weekend.
The St. Louis County Insider with Councilman Mark Harder.
That's me. Every Sunday evening at 5, we will explore with you behind-the-scenes stories and information that you won't hear anywhere else. Plus, we talk to decision makers and influencers that have impact on what's going on in St. Louis County and beyond.
The St. Louis County Insider with Councilman Mark Harder.
I'll talk to you Sunday night at 5, only on News Talk STL.
Dreaming about a vacation but not sure where to start? Should you book that all-inclusive resort or a cruise? Which destination? What cruise line? And how do you know you're getting the best value? That's where Magic Expeditions comes in. We're your St. Louis local travel experts, helping you choose the vacation that fits. Whether a relaxing adults-only escape, family-friendly resort, or unforgettable cruise adventure, skip the stress, the guessing, and endless online searching. Visit magicexpeditions.com. That's magicexpeditions.com. On the next
Larry Connors USA.
The story behind the story when Granddad was teaching him to catch catfish using treble hooks and blood bait.
Larry Connors USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kind of dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Been a very busy show today. If you missed any of it, go back and check out our podcast. We talked to Missouri State Senator Nick Schroer in the 2 o'clock hour, Virginia Kruta from the Daily Wire in the 2 o'clock hour, Dr. Randy Tolber, just wrapped up a conversation with him. We're about to talk to Mike Marfell, my co-host from the Bluff City Outdoors show. If you want to make sure you never miss any of those great conversations, just subscribe to Colombo and Company. We put the show out as a podcast right after we get off the air every day. We put it on basically every podcast platform. So wherever you get podcasts on that platform, just subscribe to Colombo and Company. You'll never miss anything. And you definitely never want to miss when Mike Marfell's in the studio. Good to see you, buddy. How are you?
Correct. I'm good. I am good.
So, of course, you can tune in and hear myself and Mike and our co-host, the owner of Bluff City Outdoors, Mark McMurray, every Saturday morning, 11 a.m.
Captain Johnny.
Captain Johnny. Yeah. Executive producer, Captain Johnny, part of that show as well. Lots of fun talking about fishing and hunting and trapping and all the great fun outdoor activities. As we always say, though, we intentionally don't talk politics unless politics is invading on the outdoor community,
Which unfortunately has been.
Which it does happen from time to time. But other than that, we don't get too political on that show on purpose because we want to talk about fishing and hunting and fun stuff. But
you got fun stuff over there?
When Mike's able to join us here, we can talk a little. I do have some fun stuff, but I did want to get your thoughts on the State of the Union. Did you watch the whole
I watched
thing?
every bit of it.
See, I didn't.
And to be fair, I've watched everyone going back 15 years probably.
So Dr. Tobler was saying that it was good that the president went so long because he had a lot to say. That's the only part I really didn't like, especially with today's short attention span. I feel like, even if you're on a roll, once you get past an hour, 15 hours,
it's rough.
You're just not going to hold the.
There'll be a lot of stuff you can clip out of there for
I wish it would have been a little bit shorter, but I thought he nailed it and trapped the Democrats multiple times, made them look ridiculous.
Dude, the Presidential Medal of Freedom for the goalie was impressive.
Yeah.
Because as a guy that plays old men hockey, that goalie was the reason we have a gold medal.
Yeah, and you're a goalie too, right?
Yes, sir.
So you felt a little bit.
I took it personal when people would say, "Oh, that one save where he got it with the paddle behind him was lucky." I was like, "Well, if you look, his eyes are looking at the puck and his stick's there. You got a stick for a reason, and it's got a paddle on it for a reason."
Right.
I've made saves like that, not to win an Olympic gold medal, but and the puck was moving much slower in the old man hockey league. But that's intentional. I mean, he didn't just drop his stick and it bumped into it.
Yeah, I thought what some people would call the theatrics of the speech. I thought were all very appropriate and very positive.
He was very Trump.
The medals, the Congressional Medal of Honor the 2 medals there that he put out, recognizing the Ukrainian mother and some other folks in the hockey team and things like that. I thought he did a good job of keeping it positive, as we've talked about.
He stayed on track.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. I thought he did well. Do you think he scored some points?
Yeah, but will anybody remember those come November?
Yeah.
That's what I worry about.
Yeah. You feel like
they are crazy, right? I mean, that was my favorite line. These people are crazy.
Yeah. And
everybody but Fetterman.
And he exposed that in a big way.
Yeah. I mean, I'm old enough to remember way, way, way back in 2009 when one guy just yelled, he lied.
Yes.
And they kicked his butt out, and it was the biggest story ever.
And even the Republicans were mad at
him.
I can't remember what congressman that was, but yelled at
Obama.
At Barack Obama, yelled, "You lie." And even the Republicans were like, "Hey, listen, not appropriate at the State of the Union." Now, that would be nothing.
Yeah, right.
I mean, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar,
they're wearing an F ice button.
They had the crazy eyes.
Yes. And the way the one woman that was, well, it wasn't woman, it's a trans woman. So I replaced trans with fake. So it was a fake that rolled her eyes when he announced that JD was going to be heading up the fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of them are really freaked out that the grift might be over.
Yeah.
Because JD is you can not like him, say weird things about him, but he's not a dumb man.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So
I agree.
Let's talk about something fun.
Let's talk about some fun stuff, like this new article that's gone viral, an article that was originally posted on The Guardian. Some doctors and some experts, I don't know how you have experts in this field. We're talking about underwear.
Marky Mark, he was an expert.
Experts claim you should replace your underwear every 6 months.
What? I
Not
replace mine when
not
they
wash your
disappear.
underwear
When
every
they
6
disappear in the dryer, that's when I replace them.
Not just wash your underwear every 6 months. Replace. I have boxer shorts that are
Oh, I've got some from way
10,
back.
15 years old.
Hey, man, if they hold up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, they got to just disappear and it's just a waistband in the dryer. Then I'll replace it.
It's not new advice, according to these experts. It's
Why
new
do we
to
have
me.
experts on this? What's
Right?
going on?
Got to mention a recent Financial Times article. The owner of an underwear company talked about it, probably because she wants people to buy more underwear.
You think?
Quote, doctors generally recommend replacing underwear every 6 to 9 months. Washing doesn't remove everything. Maybe you're not washing it right.
Maybe.
If
I
you're
was going to say, you might want to check that. You should have asked Dr. Tolber when you had him on.
Yeah.
Get to the bottom of this.
Doc, should we be replacing our underwear every 6 months? I'm not. Yeah, that's not enough to convince me yet about that.
Is it Dr. Fruit of the Loom? Is that
Yeah,
who's-
maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm thinking
maybe.
that's who it is.
There was an article out today about the price of watching sports, specifically the NFL. There was a recent report that was just released that shows that it costs about nearly $1,000 if you want to watch every NFL. Just watch the NFL on television. Used to be free. Over-the-air television, you could watch, the networks.
Right.
But now, because of all the streaming, some games are on Netflix, some games are on Prime, some games are on YouTube, some
ESPN.
ESPN, to have all these subscriptions. And
Yeah,
to watch
they're
all
trying
this-
to ruin it. They
yeah,
really are.
Sunday Night Football on NBC, which is Peacock, and like you said, ESPN. That it costs nearly $1,000 just to watch the NFL. The FCC is looking into this now and trying to ease the pain for the cost.
Why don't we get
something as simple-
DraftKings to pay for it? Because they're making money hand over fist.
Boy, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Do you think it's, I like my son, we watch the WWE.
Nice.
And, you got to have once, if you want to watch SmackDown on Fridays, you got to have the NBC subscription because that's on USA. Monday Night Raw is on Netflix, so you got to have that. If you want to watch the pay-per-views, that's all through ESPN, so you got to have the
ESPN app.
Yeah, and pay that. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have. There are just some of it that we just miss because it's
Right.
not that important. But I mean, if you want to be a fan of football or
I-
wrestling or something else,
I find it hard to.
investment
I don't know
is
where.
ridiculous.
I'd like to see the calculations. $1,000. I mean, because Paramount, most of the NBC, those are on. They're on network.
Let's see. I think I have some of it.
Prime.
Catch all the action throughout the 2025 season. Fans had to fork over at least $575, and some spent nearly $800. Sunday ticket in 2025, new subscribers had to pay $276.
Oh yeah, if you get the ticket for sure.
YouTube TV membership is $480 for the year. Oh, I cut off the rest of it. There was more. But it
Yeah, they're
added up
saying
to
if you want to
Netflix.
watch all the games.
Yeah, if you want to watch
all the games,
all the football
I'm
games.
just fine watching the games that are on the free stuff and my Prime subscription.
I never understood why they didn't just offer like back in the day. I would have paid a certain amount just to watch Cowboy games.
Yeah,
just
Yeah.
every Cowboy game, no matter what.
Yeah.
If it was a certain.
I would have
price.
too. Well, not the Cowboys, but the Steelers.
Absolutely.
Well, back when the Cardinals, remember when that was them and the Blues were on 11? I thought the fan base was bigger when it was all free. It was all on Channel 11.
You remember how old are you? You remember having to go
I'm old enough.
go up to the cable store and get the box to
Box.
watch the playoffs?
And it had a dial on it.
Absolutely.
Back when MTV played music.
There you go. That is Mike Marfell, local professional fisherman. Tune in every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. to hear Mike and myself and Mark McMurray from Bluff City Outdoors on the Bluff City Outdoors Show. Of course, Bluff City Outdoors in Alton, Illinois, open 7 days a week. All of your fishing needs, all your bow hunting needs, all your trapping needs, all your Garmin
Out Electronics and Pro
needs.
Guide batteries.
You know it. And you can shoot every day in the state-of-the-art archery range at Bluff City Outdoors. The place to go for the outdoorsmen in the St. Louis area, Bluff City Outdoors. Check them out there in Alton and on Facebook and at bluffcityoutdoors.com. That's going to do it for us. Colombo and Company back tomorrow at 2. O'Reilly next, then Tim and Chris.
Concerned about the condition of your windows driving up your energy bills? I was too. It's only called STO Windows and Doors. Their Provia windows combine old world craftsmanship the professional way, the Provia way, with over 65 years of combined experience, locally owned, offering competitive pricing and personalized service.